to the Braves. Braves doing a lot of stuff today. They can surprise people. You know that. They signed Mike Yastrzemski earlier, 23 million, 2 years. Now Robert Suarez, 3 years, $45 million. The Mets were in on him. We're going to start with the Mets and chat at me, and I'm going to try to jot them all down. I'm up in the room. Unfortunately, no John Paul Morosi today. He is gone from the winter meetings, as has just about everyone else. I'm about the only one left here, and I am in the room, and I am going to talk about the Mets. I'm going to talk about the trade targets, hitters. There's some surprise trade targets on the hitting front and on the pitching front. So happy to talk about all of it, and go ahead and chat at me. You got any chats? I'm happy to answer any and all, but we're going to start with the Mets. Obviously, they don't get Robert Suarez. To me, that was a guy that would have made sense for them, right? I think they need a closer. They're going with Devin Williams as their closer instead of obviously Edwin Diaz, who's off to the Dodgers. It's been a rough 2 days for the Mets. It's been a rough winter for the Mets. They've lost Nimmo, they've lost Diaz, they've lost Alonso. Three of the most popular players. Not only that, three of the most productive players on the team. They say they're not that concerned about the clubhouse. That's what they say publicly anyway, and I kind of believe them. After seeing the moves that have been made, Diaz and Nimmo are two of the most upbeat guys in that clubhouse. So it's another loss. It's certainly a loss for the fans. The fans, if you've been a fan of the Mets, you're probably used to this. Something going down. Hopefully something will go down for the Mets. That's for sure. You're probably used to this if you're a fan of the Mets, because obviously the Tom Seaver loss was the big one, but so many of their legacy players have left them due to contract negotiations, bad trades, whatever. Obviously Gooden and Strawberry. You've got Rusty Staub, David Cohn, Lenny Dykstra. Ray Knight. I know there are a lot of players that leave teams, but this is a history with the Mets. I mean, other than David Wright, who has actually stayed with the Mets, who's a legacy type Met. Who started with the Mets and is a star with the Mets. Need some good news for the Red Sox. They're going to get a hitter or two. I do believe that, whether it be Ketel Marte, Alex Bregman, Bichette, Akamoto, a lot of guys still on the board. I haven't heard Murakami with them, but it's another guy who could potentially fit. I think they're looking at right-handed, though. Dodgers, exclamation point. I agree. They're pretty good. It's been a rough time for the Mets. Going forward, now, what can they do? We're going to talk about Skubal in a little while, but, I do think that that's a guy who could change the narrative at least. Does he make up for the losses that they've had so far? I'm not sure. And the reason I say that, and I do think Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball, the reason I say that is it's a one-year situation. Whoever gets them in trade, and I do believe it seems more likely there could be a trade now than it did a little while ago. It seems like people in the lobby were talking about the likelihood of it, and I know that's just speculation. Skubal going to the Dodgers. I mean, you can't rule them out, right? I don't believe the reports that are out there that it's done, but I do think that Skubal has a decent chance to be traded now. Whether it's 50-50, I couldn't say that, but they are talking to teams. They are listening to teams. Certainly, you've got to say the Dodgers and the Mets have the prospects. They have the wherewithal. It's a one-year guy, but, if you get him, maybe it enhances your chances to keep him. As far as the Mets go with Skubal, this isn't the kind of thing that Stearns does, where you need to trade big-time prospects. My understanding is that, of course, Nolan McLean is off limits. I mean, you're not going to trade a guy with that good with 6 years to go under control. I get that. They do have other prospects that are very, very highly thought of. Jonah Tong, Sproat, Jet Williams, Carson Benj, and others. So they could do a deal, but are they going to want to give up all these young players for a one-year guy? Doesn't sound like something David Stearns would do, and we're getting to know David Stearns a little bit. And I am believing at this point that personality is not number one on his. Let me just hear. I got a little information in here. All right. Okay. Anyway, a little update on the Suarez, excuse me there, a little update on Suarez. It seems like the Mets were talking concepts. They talk concepts with a lot of teams. Never really got to an official offer, and they don't get him. I mean, to me, he would have been a very good closer for them. You'd have Devin Williams in a setup role. Now it looks like Devin Williams has a good chance to be the closer, and obviously did not work out as the closer in New York as a Yankee. He was pretty good as a setup man. I know his numbers in terms of strikeouts, his secondary numbers, whatever you want to call them, look pretty good. So, to me, maybe they signed Kenley Jansen. Kenley Jansen wants to close somewhere. He certainly wants to rack up the save totals, get to the Hall of Fame. I certainly get that. To me, I would sign Kenley Jansen at this point. Or I know they're talking to Tyler Rogers. That's a possibility. Royals' plans after missing out on Yastrzemski. I think they've talked about Bader, but I think that's a little bit too much money for them right now. They had talked about trading Bubic. And, in terms of recouping money, that's going to be difficult. So, I think they're certainly looking at outfield. They're looking at right-handed bats. They're one of many teams in on Brendan Donovan. I think they've even talked to Westberg of the Orioles. So there's a lot of possibilities potentially for the Royals, but they didn't have the money for Yastrzemski. It was great for them, really. 839 OPS. I give the Braves credit. They've had a big day, Yastrzemski and Skubal. So the Mets competition is bulking up, right? The Phillies brought back Schwarber. I bet they match anything with Real Muto. We shall see. I bet they bring him back. They're going to do big stuff. You know that Middleton and Dombrowski are primed to do something large. It's unfortunate what's going on with the Mets right now, but that is what's happening. All right, and Skubal, in the lobby, people were saying it's a decent chance, more than I heard at the GM meeting. So it's a month later. Obviously, now Detroit is talking. I think a couple of considerations are if they don't trade him and they're in the race, which they could very well be with Skubal, can you trade him at the deadline when you're in the race? I don't see that happening. Obviously, Detroit made trades at the deadline 2 years ago, didn't think they were in the race. Then they got in the race, and they were better than they thought, better than we all thought. But that just doesn't seem possible. They also have no chance to sign him long term, as we saw with you hate to say no chance, but certainly with their offer of under $80 million, they're not even anywhere near the ballpark. So no chance. Padres, Mets, blockbuster. Look, the Padres have Mason Miller. I hear that they are listening on just about everybody, not Tatis so far, from what I understand. That story that came out that says they may do something really big. I think that opened people's eyes and made people think maybe Tatis could be on the move, but I don't believe that. I don't see that. I think A.J. Preller does not want to do that to the fans. Some teams really do look at what the fans are going to think about, and they've been selling out. The Mets attendance has been good too. Their fans are very loyal through all of this. I'm just not sure how they're going to make up for everything that's gone. I get that that Alonso didn't have the metrics that they were looking for, and certainly would have gone last year had Steve Cohen not saved him for the team, giving him that deal, which ended up being $30 million for 1 year with an opt-out. So, it worked out well for Alonso. He ends up with more than the 158 that he declined 2 years ago. He ends up with a 205, I believe, counting the 155 he is getting from the Orioles over the next 5 years. Yankees, Tatis, like I said, I'm not seeing that. Cubs, I think Imai is a possibility. Lindor on the market. I get why you'd ask that at this point. I haven't heard that. There were kind of rumors earlier, but I don't know. Can they really do that now? Come on. John Henry needs to go. Let's wait. I think the Red Sox, we can give them a little more time. I get it. They were in there for Alonso. I think around a 3-year deal, maybe a 4-year deal they would have gone to. Certainly the Cubs were in there in that same kind of range, maybe 4 years for each of those teams. But the Orioles stepped up. They gave him more than Schwarber got. I don't know if that was important to him, but he did sign a day later for $5 million more, so it kind of looks that way. Japanese Stars posted any updates. There wasn't a lot of buzz about the Japanese players here. I do feel Cubs and Imai potential match. The Cubs have done well with Japanese players. Suzuki has been very good for them. Shota has been very good for them. And I do see that as a potential match. Yankees, I'm not so sure at this moment. It feels like they're really slow playing everything. If they do sign someone, it probably will be Bellinger. Bichette to the Red Sox. Possibility, Marte, Ketel Marte is certainly a guy that the Red Sox are talking about. Bichette, also a possibility. They've got a number of possibilities. They've got free agents they're looking at as well. So we shall see. Tucker next to sign. It makes sense. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I think we're guessing on who's next. That's not something I think anybody ever guesses right at. I mean, I guess with Alonso, you could have guessed because he came here with the meetings, as we first reported at the New York Post, and the meetings can trigger deals. And certainly with Schwarber signing off the market, the Orioles not getting him, that did make sense. Back-to-back signings by the Braves, very good. I agree. Joey Gallo, as a pitcher, I've heard a half dozen teams are looking at him. Mackenzie Gore to the Padres. That's something I suggested at the deadline. It was a real possibility. Didn't happen, but that was a team that was looking at him. Now I do believe that Gore is very likely to be dealt. Not a guarantee, but very likely to be dealt. The Nats are doing the right thing. I mean, they need to move on and rebuild. The Mets, I'm not sure why they need to rebuild. I get that was a very disappointing season, but why not just enhance what you have and improve, Bregman, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that's the most likely one with the Red Sox to go back there. It worked out nicely. They like that leadership. He did a very good job with them. I think that's even more likely than Ketel, Marte, and Bichette. They've got other possibilities as well. Mets and Marte. That's going to be a tough one. Marte is a second baseman, so they've acquired Semien, so I'm not seeing that. I know the Mets fans are out there wanting to do something. I think their best hope would be Skubal, but do they really trade prospects now when they've lost veterans? I just don't see that necessarily happening. I know Mets people are debating whether to do it or to wait for free agency. I kind of think they might wait. But you know what? The danger is he could sign with the Dodgers, as several people have chatted at me. I would not be shocked about that. So Skubal feels like he has a greater chance to be traded than when we talked about it at the GM meetings. I'm still going to say 50-50. I know that's a popular phrase. I know Diaz said that about staying with the Mets. Can't say he turned out to be right or wrong if you say 50-50, right? So I do think there is a decent possibility of it now. A couple of executives have suggested to me they do believe that he will be traded. Again, that's just speculation. Of course, it's a little bit more informed speculation because they are potentially in on talks. Orioles, Imai. I think Suarez is more likely for the Orioles than Imai. Are they really going to get into the Japanese market in Baltimore? I think that's probably a difficult one for them. Is there a chance Bellinger Tucker sign in the next 24 hours? I mean, anything's possible. I'm not seeing that as particularly likely. Possibility, but not particularly likely. All right, let's move on to the more pitching trade targets. All right, there are a ton of pitching trade targets. Cabrera is out there, certainly with the Marlins. The Orioles are one of many teams that have talked about Cabrera. That seemed to be heating up a couple days ago, so can't rule it out. I think it's much more likely they trade Cabrera than Alcantara. Gore, as I said, I think could go, probably will go. Barrios, certainly a potentially a trade man. Pivetta, San Diego's talking about him and how, they need starting pitching. They need two starters, so that would be a big loss for them. Mason Miller is out there, but I think that's more from other teams talking. Maybe San Diego, they consider anything, almost anything. I don't think they're trading Tatis, but they'll consider almost anything. But, I mean, that would be a major loss. They'd have to get a ton back for Mason Miller, who was absolutely fantastic for the Padres. And excuse my voice, we're at the end of the winter meetings. It's a wonder I have a voice. There were many years there where I ended up with almost no voice by the end of the winter meetings. Peralta, I think there's a decent chance that he gets traded. Bubic, that's a guy who's been out there, but the fact that he missed the last couple months with injury, I think that's kind of curtailed the trade market for Bubic, and so I'm not sure that he does get dealt now. All right, Framber Valdez. I mean, look, these pitchers who are out there who are top pitchers, and he is more accomplished than Dylan Cease, are going to want to compare themselves to Cease, right, and say, look, Dylan Cease is getting $210 million. I've done more than him. I've won more games. I've been more consistent. But, you got to, you doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to beat Dylan Cease's contract. I do think Framber Valdez is a terrific pitcher. He's been a big winner with Houston. He's been good in the playoffs. He's won as many games as anyone this decade, tied with Max Fried. And in terms of quality starts, he is second to Zach Wheeler. So I do think that whoever gets him is going to get a very, very good pitcher. Are the Mets still trading Senga? They talked about what a great offseason he's having at their talk a few days ago. To me, that's a sign that they still want to trade him. Ryan Mountcastle trade. I'm going to get to the hitter trade market, but he's an obvious guy. Any chance the Padres re-sign Michael King? For now, they're saying they don't have the money. I'm not going to give up on it because you never know. Teams come out of the woodwork. They like to be stealth. Certainly, San Diego does interesting stuff. He would fit. They do like him very much. They knew they weren't going to be able to get Cease, but perhaps they could get Michael King. Still a little bit high for them. Mets in on, I'm sorry, I missed that. Yankees making a trade. Well, Yankees are right now kind of laying low at this point. Someone joined late on Skubal. I'm just going to say it seems more likely that he'd get traded now than he did at the GM meetings. That's the word in the lobby. At least it was. Everybody's left but me. I'm the only one here. I think, obviously it's all speculation, but they are talking to teams. They are listening. Certainly will require a bundle. He is the best pitcher, certainly at least in the American League, probably in baseball. So I don't blame them for asking for a bundle. All right, Akamoto Red Sox. Yep, I connected him to the Red Sox. That is a possibility. Twins, doesn't feel like they are trading their guys, so Buxton stays, Lopez stays, Ryan stays. So I guess somebody was asking me about Ryan. It looks like he's staying right now. Please tell me the Mets are working on something. They are. They're working on Tyler Rogers, at least. We talked about whether they should try for Skubal. That's tough for them right now because how do you trade your prospects? You've lost your current stars. You're gonna trade your prospects now. I don't know. For a one-year guy, I mean, as much as we all love Skubal, it certainly would help change the narrative. But I don't think David Stearns and company are about the narrative. They want to win, and that's it. Although I know fans are going to say, no, they're not doing what they do to win. So. Any chance the Cubs get Tanner Scott? After $72 million, is somebody really wanting Tanner Scott? He did not perform this year. He's obviously been replaced by Diaz, but I don't see him on the trade market. Athletics pitching activity, well, they're signing Mark Leiter Jr. That's not a starting pitcher, but how much do the fans dislike Stearns? Well, right now, I guess they do. He's been through it, though. He traded Hader in Milwaukee. It's not the same thing. I guess smaller market kind of, makes more sense for the smaller market not to keep big stars who are going to make big money. But he wasn't beloved there at that point either. Willie Castro to the Braves. I don't think so. They got a Dubon. He's a good utility man. If anything, they could use a shortstop. Are the O's the favorite for Valdez? At this moment, maybe. The O's, as John Morosi, my partner, former partner, hopefully a future partner, revealed the Orioles, Giants, and Mets did meet with Valdez. I mean, the Mets, they don't want to sign a pitcher over 30 to a long-term deal. They didn't want to give a very long deal to Alonso. They were willing to talk about 3-year parameters on Alonso. They only were willing to go 3 years on Diaz. I mean, I'm surprised Diaz only got 3 years because, look, Robert Suarez just got 3 years. He's 3 years older. By that, he should get 0 years, right? He's 3 years older. So, it's interesting to see what happens on the market. Suarez did very well. Ken Rosenthal's reporting that Raisel Iglesias will still be the closer. Is he the closer because he's making $16 million for a year and Suarez only 15? But, of course, Suarez got a 3-year deal, so... they're both fine closers. I get it. Keeping with the guy who was the incumbent. Seager to Red Sox, question mark. I get why you're asking that. I understand that. And I've seen it out there that they're listening on Seager. And everything I get is that they do not want to trade Seager. But once someone's listening, you never know. I don't know. I thought the Seager and Semien was kind of a thing there that they wanted to break up. they're two different people. It was a kind of a clubhouse thing, a little bit of a conflict there. And I thought when they traded Semien, that meant Seager was staying. I know the people who are there will be very disappointed if they need to trade Seager. I know they have financial considerations, but Seager, two-time World Series MVP, that's tough. Bregman to the Mets, I don't see it. I think they like what Brett Beatty did last year. They're very into run prevention, as you know, and he's a guy who actually performed on defense. I'm not seeing that. Meyer and Early for Marte, not bad, not bad. I like that. Most of these trade suggestions, they fall flat for me, but that was not a bad one. Red Sox certainly in on Marte. And let's talk about the hitter trade market now. Marte is definitely a guy who is out there and being talked about. We've heard Toronto, we've heard Seattle, we've heard Tampa, a little Detroit. Philly a little bit. Certainly a very popular guy. $92 million to go. He's well worth it. A superstar hitter. Boston does love him. So, are they the favorite? Perhaps. I don't know. But you hear more buzz about Boston with Marte than the other teams. So, excuse me, I had to check that. What are the Mets doing? Question mark. Well, we've been over that. It's not good stuff right now. Any Mets activity at all? People are anxious. I know it's only been a day or 2 days in the case of Diaz. It's a little early. They do have a couple months to go, as David Stearns pointed out, and as Steve Cohen pointed out to me. Couple months to go. More likely for the Mets, Contreras, Murakami, or Belly at first. I think Belly has got a shot for the Mets. They certainly are interested now. Are they the favorites? I mean, you've got to think the Yankees, who love Bellinger, and he did a great job for them. 5 WAR, hit great at Yankee Stadium. Really is a gamer. This is not a guy they want to lose. I do think that they are a favorite or the favorite. Of course, we probably said that about Soto and the Yankees, and he ended up going to the Mets. Bellinger certainly would be a fit. Right now, the Mets don't have a center fielder or a first baseman. He plays both, so that would work. Could Paul Goldschmidt sign with the Mets? Look, they don't have a first baseman. It's a possibility. I've seen that report. Goldschmidt wants to play. I did report that first, 38 years old, so he's going to want to come back with someone. Arizona could still bring him back, right? First base is an issue for them. Minnesota's a spot potentially for Goldschmidt. Will Posey sign any of Gallen, Bellinger, Tucker, Valdez? You know what? I think the Giants still have something in them. I really do. I really think they're going to do something. I know they're talking that they're not going to do a big pitcher. I mean, personally, I like them with pitchers, but maybe they go for the hitter. I don't know. It's a little difficult. It's a little difficult to get a hitter to go to San Francisco. I mean, if you pay the money, yes. If you make a trade like they did for Devers, I get it. But a little difficult. All right, let me get on to the hitter trade market. And excuse my voice again. Ton of hitters out there. Cronenworth is out there. I think he chance to be traded. Oh, nothing hot at this moment that I've heard of. Quan, they'll listen on anybody. I don't think that's too likely. Jaron Duran, they do have an extra outfielder. Not ruling that one out. Ryan Mountcastle, I think that's a strong possibility at this point, right? They've replaced him with Pete Alonso. Castellanos, that may take a while. I don't know. People are talking maybe they have to release him. I can't imagine they'd have to release him myself. I think he should be worth something, whether it be $1 million, $2 million. That's still better than a release. I don't know, but certainly you're going to have to pay it way, way, way down. Casas is a guy who's been out there. Obviously, they're talking about first baseman in Boston, Luis Robert. I know the Mets called about him. I know other teams have called about him. $20 million. I think it's more of a deadline thing. Lau from Tampa, name out there. His name's been out there as previously Yandy's name was out there. So possibility. All right, and now we're going to talk about we're going to talk something about the Orioles now. I want Coey Mayo off my Orioles and Cowser. I know. Sometimes guys don't have great years starting out. Doesn't mean they should be gone. Yandy Diaz, Mets. Hey, look, if they can get Yandy Diaz, that'd be terrific. He'd have a big market. Boston would fit Yandy Diaz. I think Boston has tried in the past. There's still a lot of position players out there who could help Boston. I do think Bregman's probably the most likely. And as I said, there's been a lot of buzz about Marte and Boston as well. And I know, they've talked about Marte in the past that haven't traded him, but his name clearly is out there at this point. Really, only Perdomo and Carroll are untouchable with Arizona at this point. I can see the Cardinals shopping a lot of guys. We're going to get to the Cardinals in a while. Duran to the Mets. They don't have a left fielder or a center fielder, although I think they like Carson Bench. If they get, I think they'd prefer right-handed bat, but again, they're looking at Bellinger, so why not look at Duran? Tucker Mets. The Mets did check in. All the big market teams have checked in. I don't get that one myself to go $400 million or whatever it's going to cost when you've already got Juan Soto. Do they have $1 billion worth of right fielders? That seems a little bit over the top to me. I do think Tucker will find his market, whether it be now or later. But the Mets, to me, don't seem like the perfect fit for Tucker. I think there are better fits. I don't know that Baltimore has more money for a hitter now. They're probably going pitching. But I think maybe potentially, we're talking maybe Toronto, maybe Philly, maybe San Francisco. I mean, if you're willing to do a shorter deal, the Dodgers, but I don't see why he would do a shorter deal. To me, he's a guy with a long deal with an opt-out. That's how good a player he is. He's one of 5 players with at least a 4 WAR over the last 5 years. Orioles staying aggressive. Indeed, they are. I mean, the Orioles are ultra-aggressive. Give them credit. They've already gotten Helsley. They've gotten Kittredge. Will the Mets move Soto to first base? That I don't see. $765 million guy. I think he's the right fielder, and they're going to work on it. I mean, he was better as a Yankee in right field than as a Met, probably. Obviously, a little bit shorter porch, less room to cover, but I don't see him going to first. First base isn't so easy that you can just move there. Abrams or Seager to the Braves. Abrams from Atlanta, as J.P. Morosi mentioned. I do think there's a good chance that Abrams will be dealt. He's one of those position players I should have mentioned who could be dealt. I could see that. Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Brendan Donovan could all be gone, and they can start a rebuild. Yeah, I agree. We're going to talk about the Cardinals in a second. As far as the Braves go, I mean, Seager with almost $200 million to go, probably around $190 million. I think that would be probably a little rich for the Braves. As I said, I just don't see Texas moving him from what I've heard. I know it's out there. I've seen it. It must be, I mean, it's been out there from credible sources, so there must be something to it. They must at least have listened to one or two things anyway. Excuse me. All right, so let me talk about the Cardinals here. That's my last topic. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulties at the beginning. We're going to finish out strong here. Let's see, could the Orioles acquire Gore? Yes, the Orioles are in on Gore. I'm glad you brought that. I get some great chatters here. That's a good one. Gore could go to the Orioles, certainly Cabrera. They could certainly make a trade. And the Orioles have been ultra aggressive. I give them credit. I mean, they've gotten Kittredge, they've gotten Helsley. I mean, they're working great. And obviously, Alonso, 155. I actually predicted 165 for Alonso. So I'm not, even if the Mets are surprised, I'm not surprised. The guy's a very productive power hitter, and he's a guy who plays every day, 162 games the last 2 years. I mean, that is not the usual number of games that guys play at this point. I mean, you got to give the guy credit, and he even arranged a childbirth for after a night game so he wouldn't miss any games. He played that day. The child was born, then he played the next day. I mean, this guy is a gamer, and I'm not sure why there aren't more teams are willing to do 5 years, but certainly give the Orioles credit. I think they did the right thing. It does feel like they're very excited about it, and they should be excited about it. Mike Elias ain't messing around. I agree 100%. All right, sorry to go back on the Orioles. I'm going to finish up with the Cardinals here. They are absolutely open for business. Arenado, he probably should have accepted Houston last year, as I mentioned yesterday on the live stream, and there is a good chance that he'll be traded. Obviously, Donovan, everybody's interested in him. Versatile player, productive player. Everybody likes him. I've seen Lars Nootbaar's name out there. Wilson Contreras' name is out there. He had a nice year last year, 95% and a hard hit rate, so they could get something pretty decent for him. So I do believe the Cardinals will be moving and shaking. Lindor, Padres rumor. Hey, there are rumors all over the place. The Padres can't take another shortstop who's got $200 million to go. They've already got Bogarts on the team. and Bogarts was pretty good last year. Now, Bogarts probably isn't tradable with his contract, neither is Machado. We're all still wondering what the big thing is that the Padres could be talking about. The story made it sound like it was enormous, but, it could be Mason Miller, but I do know that teams are asking about him, but I find it hard to believe they could trade Miller and Pivetta. Of course, should believe anything that's attached to A.J. Preller because he is a GM that is a mover and a shaker. There's no question about that. Anyway, I think my time is up now. I'm sorry I was a little bit late today. I miss J.P. Morosi. It's been an interesting winter meetings. Obviously, we had some big winners. The Orioles, Dodgers, big winners. Fortunately, I think we know who the loser of this winter meetings was. Obviously, there must be a grand plan for the Mets after they lost Diaz, but before they lost Alonso. I think it was David Stearns who said he's very optimistic about this winter. I don't know that he was thinking that Alonso was leaving at that moment, but, Steve Cohen is the one who saved him the first time, so it's obvious that for whatever reason, I think it's just based on the fact that Alonso is a slugging first baseman, and that's not really his thing, that he didn't mind him going, but it's going to be interesting to see who the replacement is. They're gonna go backwards at closer. They're certainly gonna go backwards at first base. I'm sorry to keep going back to the Mets, but still, they're the story of this winter meetings. I don't think there's any way around that. All right, I'm actually off on vacation next week, so I will miss you guys. I appreciate it, and it's Jon Heyman signing off for Bleacher Report. It's been an interesting winter meetings, and thanks to all the chatters.